So hello team, welcome back to the session. So yesterday we discussed about the container concepts, the virtualization concepts, what exactly is a container and what are the drawbacks of going for a virtualization and how containers can help. And I told you, I showed you how to deploy or how to install the Docker platform or Docker on the Linux machine. Then we discuss about hosting a simple container, okay, how we can host a simple container. And then we discuss about the Docker images, like what exactly is a Docker image or from where I can get the Docker images. And there are a few more things which I want to discuss today, team. The things are like, I want to show you that first thing is that I want to tell you more about the Docker images. Then I want to talk to you regarding the key concepts uh, how to expose a port, exposing ports in a container. Then I want to show how to map a local storage to the container, and just the basics of how to build a Docker image or Docker file. That's a very important thing. I'll show you how to build a Docker file. It's a really interesting thing to understand. Then finally, we'll discuss about the services available to host container in cloud. This is the plan for today, team. Okay, that's it. So first of all, let's talk about the Docker images. I know that we discussed it yesterday, but I'm trying to tell you some more aspects of it. So you can see that when you basically go for something called as a Docker Hub. So team, what is a Docker Hub? Which we all know that Docker Hub is a repository, right? It's a repository. I guess you can see my browser now. Yep. So we have a Docker Hub. This is a repository, right? So what does the Hub contain, team? It contain containers or images? Tell me, team. What does the Docker Hub contain? Is it contain the images or containers? Exactly. The Docker Hub contains the images,
Images.
right? Exactly. So basically what happens is that when I go to the Docker Hub, I can see many images here. I can download the images. I can just work on it. Also, there is an option where you can build your own image. Okay, like for example, now there is a doubt that people ask. So Krish, in AWS, when you deploy instance, from the instance, you can create something called as a custom AMI. Like the same way, in a Docker platform, if you want to build your own images, there is a concept called as a Docker file. Okay, I'll teach you this. It's a text file which you create. By using this Docker file, you're able to build a complete, Docker image by yourself. Okay, I'll come to how to build a Docker image definitely for sure. But before that, uh, I want to tell you how to or where to store the Docker images. First of all, the there are two ways. If you want to store a Docker image, what we basically do is we will go to the Docker Hub and we can basically store it there. Okay, this is the location where we can basically download the existing images, or we can basically build our own images and store it inside this. For example, see, there is something called as a pricing. So when you see a tab called as a pricing, you may have a doubt that Krish, if I basically talk about this Docker Hub and if there is a pricing there, so do we have to pay for it? So team, there are two types of repositories. Okay, we have a two types of repositories. Okay, that means that we have a public repository and we have a private repository. So whatever images you are seeing in Docker, which I showed you yesterday in this Explorer window, is basically the public images, the images which are basically made public. Okay, these images are actually made public and accessible by anyone in the world. But you can create something called as a private repository. That means what? If you want, you can basically create a private repository in the Docker Hub as well. Like you can pay for it and they will basically allow you to create a private repository also. That means that is only visible to you and accessible by your account only. Like public people cannot download the images or pull the images from that. Okay, what if I want to have a different repository? Like for example, I feel like Krish, I don't want to basically go for a Docker Hub. I want to have my own repository. So I don't recommend you store your Docker images in a single computer, team. Like if you store all your Docker images in a single, your local laptop or local system, what will happen is that if something goes wrong, the images will also be gone. So that is why you can basically, if you go to AWS, you have a service called as a ECR. Okay, we have a something called as a ECR, or Elastic Container Registry. This is a complete private registry which you have. Okay, like the Docker Hub, you can build your images and store your images in something called as a ECR in AWS. This is an example I'm telling you. Okay, just in case if you build an image, and once you build an image you want to store it somewhere, either public or private, you can use something called as a ECR. Also, if you go to Azure, let me see if I can show you Azure console as well. If you go to Azure, basically what happens is that in the Azure console, there also we have an option where we are able to see. I can click on this. I just click on all services. We call us ACR actually. Just give me a second. So I go to containers. See this team, there is option where we have something called as a container registry. I click on this, and what happens? This will allow me to store my containers or my images in this particular registry. Okay, either I can go for AWS ECR or Azure ACR, and or I can store it in the Docker Hub. But if you want to make your images public, or if it's fine for you to have your images in a public platform, you can simply go for a Docker Hub, and just you have to create account there. That's the first thing, team. If you want to basically work on it, the first thing is that you have to create an account on Docker Hub. It's not so tough. It's a free of cost thing. You have to create account in Docker Hub, and then once you do that, then you can basically pull your images and push your images to the Docker Hub. Okay, that's it. It's like a GitHub, very, very simple. Okay, that's it. Any doubts in this team? So don't worry, I'll
Krish,
show you how to build a Docker file. Tell me.
sorry, Krish, at enterprise level, when you have a golden image, would you store it in AWS or Azure, or would you store it on-prem in a secure location?
Okay, I will tell you the strategy. If that golden image is a bit critical thing, if it's a sensitive thing, or if I don't want the images to be seen by the public, I personally recommend. See, I'll tell you one reason why I go for AWS. Nowadays, right? Team, what is the problem if you run containers in your system? Like for example, if you basically see in my computer, there can be multiple containers running. Maybe just an example. So the problem I am facing is that if I store all the images in my single computer or in my single system in my local system, it is too tough for people to access it. That is why the cloud service providers give you something called as a Docker service in the cloud itself. Like if I go for AWS, you can see that ECS, Elastic Container Service. This is a Docker pre-configured Docker server by AWS. The same Docker server which you install. If you go for Azure also, we have the same thing. So for this kind of pulling and pushing process, if you want to use the cloud platform for running your containers and managing your data in the cloud itself, I prefer you go for the ECR itself. So it's more easy to pull and it's more secure inside the AWS. It's not getting exposed to the public. And the second thing is that I will go to Docker Hub if only if I feel that okay, that images can be given to the public. Like what okay, let's say there is a requirement I'm having, or I'm making the image public to my customers, I can go to Docker Hub, no problem. Also for testing purpose, I have hosted a lot of images here. For testing purposes, I have hosted a lot of images here. Got it?
So mostly, this all Dockers and all, you use it on-prem, or mostly say a cloud-based thing?
Nowadays it's more of a cloud. So cloud, okay, Krish, cloud is different, not like that. Instead of having this Docker server in your on premises, that is a pre-managed, pre-configured Docker server in the cloud platform. That's all.
So what is
Yeah.
the best practice, Krish? Ideally, what is the industry recommendation nowadays?
Okay, I'll tell you. I'll
So
tell you.
one should store these Docker images container to a private cloud, or we should go with a public cloud and any cloud service provider, GCP, AWS, or IBM
Okay,
cloud, whatever. What
got it.
demand?
So yeah, so the answer is, if you want to deploy the containers in the cloud platform, not saying images, if you want to deploy the containers in the cloud platform, plus you're working, your company is basically always wandering around the cloud itself, then it's good to go for a public cloud providers repository. Like you can go for ECR or Azure container repository like that. But at the same time, if you are running everything in the on-premises and not using cloud platform, you can basically go for a local repository or a Docker Hub. Okay, that's what I do personally. And just I will answer the question more detail. But before that, can you restrict view to? Yeah. So basically, what happens whenever you store anything in a registry? So what is a registry, team? Registry means it's a repository of Docker images. So my point is that there are two types. One is public. One is private. Public means what? Public means so whoever want to access, like for example, now I am going to my Docker Hub. I'm searching for something, like let's say I'm searching for Alpine, or let's say I'm searching for let's say give me some, yeah, Redis. So what happens? See, I'm able to see the image here. This image is an official image. I can see it's a public one. That's why I'm able to see this. But at the same time, there are some private images here inside this that only you will be able to sign in. Plus, only if you have access, you will be able to see that images, with the private images. That is restricted to a people or those people which I have shared. For example, now let me give an example. We have 4 users, Krish. Let's say we have John, we have a Sam, we have a Tom. So Krish is having a Docker Hub account, John is having an account, Sam is having an account. So every person here is having a Docker Hub account. So what I can do is I can create a private repository or public repository, whatever it is. If I create a private repository and I can specifically allow the access for the private repository to John's account, Sam's account, and Tom's account also. That is possible. Got it? So that is a concept. Now, which repository for using? That is the next question. Which repository for using? Whether if I want to go for Docker Hub or AWS ECR or Azure Container Registry. So it's up to you. Like if your company is mostly working in the AWS infrastructure, like if you're using the AWS container services, AWS Kubernetes services, if you're purely your company is working in AWS, then you can basically go for ECR. It will be more secure for you. Here also we have option to make it either public or private. Like the same way, if your company is more onto Azure, you can go for the Azure container service. You can make it public or private. That's all. Okay. But if you're like otherwise, if you're basically working things in the on-premises, I prefer you go for the Docker Hub and store it in the Docker Hub itself. And if you want to go for a private repository in Docker Hub, it is chargeable, it is paid, it is chargeable. You have to pay for it. Clear, team?
So, Krish,
But
if we
Chris, how? Oh, sorry. Go on.
okay, so Krish, if we are using the container services either from AWS or
Okay.
Azure, is it
Mhm.
having all those images what we can find on the Docker's hub?
Okay.
Like for example, yeah.
Point number one. That is where the point you missed. So the team, I'll just repeat the question once again for clear clarity of everyone. The question was asked when that person was, if I go for the Azure Container Service, there is something called as Azure Container Service. See, this is the Azure Container Service. If you go for the AWS Container Service, okay. If you go for the AWS Container Service or Azure Container Service, actually what you're doing there is the same Docker server you're deploying in the cloud platform. The same Docker server, no difference. The same Docker server you're deploying in the cloud platform also. When you say that you are deploying the same Docker server in the cloud platform, then why can't you pull an image from the Docker Hub? If you simply give an instruction called as Docker pull something, so what happens? This will pull this particular image only directly from the Docker Hub only, whatever it is. Got
Okay,
it? Yeah.
I understand. Absolutely right. Yeah. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Krish.
Yep.
Chris, how secure it is, like the private and the public? Because if the
Uh,
fintech companies or a financial institution, what is the industry enterprise standards that now we are following actually
So
for this?
basically, what happens is I have seen that. See, I when I have a to make it very simple. My experience with containers are very limited. Like it's basically for the last 6 7 years I'm using these containers. And in my experience with my clients, what I felt is that those people who are using those images, either it's a fintech company or medical or banking, whatever it is. When we say the word organization images, they will always store it in a private repository only until unless that image is not at all critical. They will keep it in public. Otherwise, I have seen that many companies will keep it in a private repository only because they want to secure the images as a whole. That's why. Got it?
Okay, okay, Chris. Thank you.
So it's up to us, team. It's completely up to us. Like if you like, I can give you an
But
example. I can give you an example.
we can also have it on the on-prem this one also, right?
Definitely yes,
The
but
private
still,
images.
but that is a bit hectic to manage, boss. To be honest, it's not practically feasible. That's why. If it's possible if you have only one image or two images, but otherwise it's too hectic. And I can give you
So
one
Chris,
example. Just one more second, team. One example I can tell you. See, you have a document. You have a simple document. Let's say if it's not critical or it's not critical or not so not so important for you, you can keep it public, or you can basically store it in some locations or Google Drive, etc. But if you feel that there is a document there which is basically very sensitive, or let's say you want to make sure that document must not be leaked, you will never keep it in this kind of locations, right? The same thing happens
Correct.
for the container images also. See, when you say container images, don't think it's like a very super confidential things. It's a code. See, this is an example for a Docker file. See, very simple example for a Docker file which I have made just now, just a few minutes back.
Mm.
See, this is a simple example for a Docker file. I'll tell you what is it, don't worry. So basically what happens is that this particular Docker file, maybe like it contain more lines, like it can contain 100 lines or 1000 lines, whatever it is, but it can contain some data like this. If you feel this is very sensitive, you can basically keep it inside the private repository. Otherwise, you will keep it private. But for organizations, I would definitely recommend them go for a private, because I don't want them to expose their configurations and all these things.
So, Chris, I was asking that Docker image, we are
Mhm.
using this term. This is a common term for anything that we can store in a Docker hub, any file, any
No, no,
application,
no, never,
executable
never, never,
application.
never, never,
No?
never, never, never. Docker file is a name which we give for the image which we are building. Okay, like if you see, I can give an example. If you want to build something called as a Docker image, okay, let me give an example here. Now, let's say from where usually you are getting the Docker images, you are getting this thing from something called as a Docker hub. So
Right.
in Docker hub also, in somewhere as well, if you want to make a Docker image, it is built from something called as a Docker file. So you write a Docker file code like this, and once you type the command docker build that file name and etc., it will basically build something called as a Docker image. The image name you can specify, but the file name is basically always Docker file. If you want, you can change it, but still normally the default file name is Docker file. Got it?
Yeah, Docker file have code. Just to give, let take an example further. I have
Okay.
a file of 100 lines of code. Okay,
Okay.
it's like an exe. I can execute this code. So once I create a image from this file of
Okay.
100 lines of code, when I deploy this image to my
Mhm.
container or my, I can execute that 100 lines of code immediately. Is it like that?
Exactly. See, when you basically run the image, this is the code which is getting executed in the backend. Okay.
Uh, that was my question. That image can
Yes.
contain any executable file, any
No,
code,
no, it contain
any.
code only. It contain code and data only. I'll just show you how to make a file. Okay. In the next few minutes, I'll
Okay.
show you that. Fine. Okay, team, let's go for this. Okay, first of all, let's discuss some few more basic things which we have discussed in the last session. So listen to me very carefully. Now there is a so this is my Linux machine which is basically having Docker installed. You can see there is a Docker installed here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, team, in this Docker file, okay, in this Docker file, I want to run a container. So I'm typing Docker run, or first of all, I want to see the images there, Docker space images. So let's see if the image is there. So I'm having some containers or images here. But okay, what happens if I run a command docker space run space, let's say nginx? What happens in this, team? If I run this,
Don't have
first of all,
image.
yeah, they will
You don't.
download the image from the
Yes,
Docker hub.
because
Yeah,
Docker up. Yeah.
exactly. And from there, they will run it. But now nothing, it doesn't make any sense for me. I don't know what is happening. I don't know what is working inside. So I'll close the container. I'm just exiting the container. Okay. The reason is because by default, whenever you run a container, it is running in something called as a foreground mode. Okay, like if you don't specify something like that, it is running in the foreground mode or attached mode. Okay, but if you run attached mode, you will be able to see the live container outputs in the screen. But what I want to do is I want to show you the in a detached mode. So I want to make the container run, but in backend. So I am running a container docker run hyphen name, or name is not this, I can just do show you later. I am typing d minus d for detached mode. Don't forget, minus d is a command which we use for something called as a detached mode. What is a detached mode, team? When you say detached mode, the container is basically will be running in the backend. Okay, it is not the live container outputs will not be shown in the screen which you see. Okay, I'm running docker run space minus d space the container name, like for example, sorry, image name, for example. See, now it's showing, yeah, the container is created. So I'll type docker space ps. Team, you can see that my container is now running. See, nginx, this is the container. It is now running. See, this is the container, right? The same container which you see here. See, it is now which is running, right? Okay, but now how can I basically access the container? Okay, if you want to access the container, I'll show you a very simple way. Docker space. Okay, so now you are inside, now you are in your normal machine only. You can see that currently I am in my normal machine only. See, just to show you that I am in my normal machine, I'm in my normal system. So now there is a container running. Okay, now there is a container running. So how do you basically log into the container? So I type docker space exec. It's a command which we use to execute a command inside the container. So I'm typing docker space exec, then minus it. What is it? Terminal interactive or interactive terminal. If you want to communicate, or if you want to basically type something inside the, or if you want to enter into the Docker container, or if you want to execute a command or type in some command inside the Docker container, you have to type something called as a minus it. So minus it is mandatory, which is called as a terminal interactive. That means you will get a command line from the Docker, that particular container, where you will be able to execute some particular commands on that. Okay, so just give me a second. Now I type space. So team, can I give a container name or container ID? Which one will work? Container name or container ID?
ID.
Both will work. Yes,
Both
both will
Both
work.
both
will
both
work.
will work.
Exactly,
Okay.
that's
Both.
the confidence. Both will work. So what I will do is, I can just, I'm just copying. I'm a big fan of container IDs, to be honest. I'm just copying the container ID here, and I type what is the command I want to run on it. Okay, bash is nothing, team. So bash doesn't mean that it's basically a very complex command. Bash is a shell, what we call as a, in Linux we have something called as a shell. What is a shell? Shell is something where you're typing the command. See, now in my Linux machine, you see here, this Linux machine you see here, I am typing the commands in the bash only. So anyway, I'm typing bash. So Krish, will this bash work for every instance? No, because only if your container, or only if the image you are having is basically having a bash pre-configured on that, then only it will work. I press enter. Now now where am I? Now if you search, if you basically check for where I am, you can see that I am now inside my container. See this, team? I have logged into my container. See? Very simple. Now you can see that I'm not in my machine. I'm in my container. See, I'm inside my container. See? So previously you are seeing root at Ubuntu. That means you are in my local machine. But now if I basically do this, I am currently logged into my container. You can basically make changes. You can type the commands inside the container. See, you have a lot of commands inside there, right? So it's completely possible for you to log into the container. Not possible in every container. Based on the type of container, you can basically log in. So how do I exit the container, team? If you want to exit the container, just type exit. Okay. Now let's make this command a bit more wider. The same command I have entered previously, I want to show you in a more detailed way. Okay, so docker space run space minus D for detached mode. Okay, so team, what happens if I don't enter a D? Let me show you. I'm going to show you what happens if I don't enter D. I'm just typing nginx. See, it's now running. I'm not able to do anything else. See, it is okay. I'm not able to do anything else. This is what we call as attached mode. Attached mode means the container outputs will live show here. Okay, but I'm going to exit this. I'm going to put a in a detached mode. Okay, for example, so now in this name I am going to, so team, usually have you seen that when you type in the container, how do they show the names of the container? The name, whatever they feel, right? What if you want to give a custom name for the container? Just type name. Okay, demo container. I'm giving a name called as demo container nginx. Okay, just give me a second. It's a double hyphen. See, now if you type docker space ps, you will see that I have given a name for the container called as demo container. If I don't give a name for the container, they will select any name they want. Got it, team? That's it.
Hey, Krish,
So how
one
do I,
question, sorry.
tell me? Tell me.
Yeah, so whenever you, provide, can you go back to that one,
Yeah,
please?
please.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Whenever
tell me.
you provide a command and the command gets executed, there is this hexadecimal, thing that is created. Is it like
Okay.
a unique, log or like a timestamp or something that is
Never,
created?
never, never.
Okay.
So this thing you see here, so now see, team, what happened? I type the command docker space run space the container name. So what happens is that this is the actual container ID. This is the actual container ID. So for our convenience, Docker will basically make it into short form. See, now this container ID, they will take this first few things and make it as a container ID here. See, that is
Got
unique.
it.
Yeah, that is always unique. Okay, that's it.
Thanks.
Okay, now let's make it a bit more interesting. So team, how do I log into the container? Can you tell me how do I log into the container? Docker space. Okay, Docker space. Tell me what is the command? Docker space exec.
Execute
Yeah,
exec.
exactly. Exec space the container ID I want to log in. So I'm
I
just logging into my new
uh,
container. Copy this container ID or name, whatever it is. Okay, space.
you will not mention IT.
Yeah, you have to. So basically, okay, let's say what happens if I don't mention this? It will not work. It will basically will not be, you will not be able to enter it. Okay, now I'm just running exec space. The command I'm going to enter is cat space /proc/ I'll tell you what is this. Okay, see team, there is nothing inside this file. That is why it's showing the error. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type I'm going to type let's say I'm just typing a simple command called as ls. Let me show you what happens here. Team, what happened here now? Can you tell me what happened here now from the things we discussed? This, what they have done is that, so this command called as ls is run inside the container. So if I type simply ls, what happened? It is showing whatever in my computer. If you type this command, okay, let's say for example, so what is the next point, team? If you want to execute something inside the container, what we have to take away on that? You have to do it using the exec. Okay, now I type docker space exec space container ID or namespace. Team, give me a command on Linux. Okay, let's say host name. So it must show the host. See, I am able to see the host name of the container. So basically what happens, this command got executed inside the container, not outside the container. Okay, all good team. So that is the key thing. If you want to install or if you want to run anything inside the container, you have to do something called as a docker space exec space container namespace, the command which you want to enter. But if you want to enter a complex command like this, see, this is a very large command. Okay, first thing is that I'll show you the error. See, there is no error showing. It's now working. See, I'm able to see the file inside the container. This is a file inside the container. Container is a host name, yes. So whatever commands you want to enter, you can basically enter the use from this docker acc. Okay, now if you want to enter the container, okay, if you want to enter the container, what do you have to type? Tell me what you want to type if you want to enter the container. -it space. What is the command you want to enter inside that? Tell me what you want to get. The shell, the command line, right? That's why you type bash. So you will get a shell, you will get a command line interface, which is basically interactive. Okay, now there is an error it's showing. Why it's showing the error? Nothing. The reason is because, let me show you. You have to do it before the container ID exec -it. See, it's now I'm inside the container. Okay, so if I type the host name inside the container, you can see the container name. Sorry. See, now I'm inside the container. So now you know how to execute a command inside the container. Now you know how to enter into the container. Okay, fine. That's it.
Yeah.
Any doubts on this
We
team?
can have we can have different. Now you have logged in with a root user inside the container, right? We can
Okay,
have different users inside the container,
you can
multiple
create
users.
because see container is a very small one. So because of that reason, what happens if you don't expect that container will say it's not a complete OS you are having there. First point,
Okay,
okay.
okay,
So
okay,
so let's
okay.
say for example, if you have a complete OS, what happens? See, now I'm inside the container. If I type the
Mm.
process in the container, you can see that. Sorry, it's top I have, I guess. Uh,
Topaz.
let me see if the top is there. Okay. Yeah, top is not there. Fine, it's okay. So basically for this container, it's not there. It's completely fine. So basically what happens,
Mm.
this is a very limited container. That means what happens, this container is not having much options there. It's not a complete
Mm.
OS you're talking about, right? It's not a complete OS
Okay.
you're talking about. So basically what happens, as it is not a complete OS we're talking about, you may have something inside, you may be able to get something or otherwise not, that's all.
But
Now,
multiple
how to
users
execute?
are possible.
You can see you sudo space, or let's say you can create a user add. Krish, if user add command is there, it will work. See,
Okay.
now let's say for example, if I type cat space, team, I'm not confusing others, just showing the, see the others user called Krish. See, it's created.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm now in the container. So how do I exit the container? Type exit. You're done, exited.
Exit.
Yeah. Like this is the way you can basically log into the container and you can exit the container also. So don't worry, I'll write all the commands in the notepad, so you'll be able to write down if you want also. Okay, that's it. See team, this is what we have done till now. I showed you three things. First thing I showed you is that how to create a container with a name. What is the tag we have used? Tell me. Hyphen hyphen name, the container name, right? This is what you have to type in, right? So you have to just type while running the command. Don't put the brackets or this thing. Just type hyphen hyphen name space the container name. Okay, and that's it. Then I showed you how to run the container in detached mode. Okay, what is the switch? What is switch? Tell me. Minus
IT.
D. Minus D, detached mode.
DT. Minus D.
Okay, then I showed you how to run a command inside a container. Live status or whatever, you can get anything you want inside the container using this command. What is the command you have to use there? Docker space exec
Yes.
space container ID or
Mm.
name space what space the command you want to execute. Okay,
Yes.
yep. Then I showed you how to log into the or how to enter the container. So like we type docker space exec IT. What is IT? Interactive terminal. Don't forget terminal interactive space the container name or container ID. Then the shell name. Okay, I'll type bash or any shell you want. Okay, that's it if it's available. Okay, let's do one thing. Let's host a website now. Okay, we have discussed a lot. I know we have discussed a lot. Let's host a simple container. Okay, I want to host a website, but there is a problem. When you run a container like this, say, okay, now I'm going to run a container here. See, if you run a container like this, the biggest problem you are going to face is that team in this container, in every ports of the container are completely closed. By default, every ports of a container is completely closed. That means you can see that there is some containers running for us here. Okay, Docker space, let's say Docker space PS. Okay, let me see if I'm able to access my container. Okay, I'm just trying to open my, I'll just open my IP of the server. Okay, this is my server, right? Just give me a second. This is my virtual machines. Team, this is the server you're seeing now. Okay, this is the server you're seeing now. I'm just copying the IP of the server. Give me a second. Where is IP? Yeah, got the IP. So team, if I type in the IP now, am I getting any kind of response on this? No, right? Because what is the problem there? In the container is not accessible because what happens? The container is not having any ports exposed. What is a port exposing team? Port exposing means that if you want to enter the container or if you want to exit the container in normal computers, what we have team, if without a container, if you go for a system, you have a firewall, right? You have a firewall or you have access control, right? If
That
you want to
server
allow,
should be listen on specific ports which we are
exactly,
trying.
the server must be listened on a particular port, exactly. But what happens is that in the container, by default, all the ports are closed. That means no ports will be listening to the outside thing. That is why if you want to expose a port in a container, see, now there is a container I am having, let's say any container, whatever it is. But let me show you the command once again. This is the step we have to do. Team, it's a very important command, so make sure you're aware of it. I am giving the command minus P for port. But this is a confusing thing. This is a bit confusing thing, not so confusing, but still you must be very clear about this. Okay, port means that the port number you want. That means that I'm just having a port number here. What happened? Oh, just I guess my my keyboard is playing with me. It's fine. Docker space run space minus D is for detached mode, minus P for port exposure, and I have to give something here called as the what? The port number of the computer. Okay, so which port of my server, see this Docker server, right? Which port of the Docker server I want to expose to the container. So what I'm doing is that team, I'm saying that 8080 colon 80 means this is the port of my container I am opening. I repeat, the second one you see, don't confuse team. It's very, very important. Don't confuse here. This is the port of the container. This is the port of the container I am opening. This is the port of my Docker host. Means the server which I have deployed Docker. Okay. So what I'm going to do is now I type, okay, the name for the container. Just I'll give a name. Okay. My first public or let's say, let's give a simple name called as nginx. Okay.
So
nginx
Chris,
02.
before executing, can you verify the means port 80 is listening on this Docker is not?
First of all,
Can
it's
you
not
verify the
listening.
status?
It's not listening. I have to, when I basically run this command, it will start listening to it.
Okay.
Okay. By default, whenever you create a container, no ports will be listening to anyone. So only if you start this expose this command, it will be exposed. Okay. Now the next thing, and you type what is the next thing you have typed in? Tell me. You have typed the image name nginx, right? I press enter. So it's now perfectly open. Okay, it's now running. So how do I know if it's running? Docker space ps. So it's now running. See, this port is exposed. See, it's exposed. See this team. Okay. Even if in the other containers you can see there is no port exposed, it will not work. The reason is because it is not mapped to the container of the system. But now in this command, what I have done is that this particular port of my computer, my Docker machine, is exposed with the port number of the Docker hub. This also is exposed. Now I want to see if it will work or not. I'm just going to my this particular thing, and if I reload, still it will not work because what? I have to type 8080, enter. So what happens? See, now my container has shown a sample page. See, my container is now showing a sample page. Okay.
Krish, one question.
Okay.
But how when did you configure this IP address to Docker?
No, first of all, I have, this is not, so I'll give you my architecture. So team, there is a server I am having here. Okay, this is my, instead of my local machine, for your convenience, I have deployed a server. This is my server in Azure. See, this server can be anywhere. Okay, this can be in Azure, this can be in AWS, this can be your local computer, your local machine. This can be anywhere. It's a server I am having, that's all. Okay, it's a server and this is the IP of the server. See, this is IP of my server. Inside this server, what I have done, I have installed the the whole Docker package, right? So what happens? The Docker remains installed inside this Docker thing. So I just called that particular IP of the machine. And in this command, what do you remember? I have exposed the port number 8080 of the Docker server, which is my server, with my port number 80 of the container, right? Is it clear now?
Yeah, clear, Krish. But in the cloud, generally, whenever we create virtual machine, it will. By default, cloud
No.
provider will give us one public IP, something like that.
Yes, yes. In every cloud platform, you
Okay.
will get a public IP when you deploy a container. Oh, sorry, when you deploy a server. And in the networking part, I have opened the port number 8080. That's why. Like for example, don't feel like Krish, it is not working for me because in my case, I have already opened the port 8080 in my server. See, in my firewall in my Azure account, I have opened 8080. That's why.
This is something like port forwarding from container to Docker.
It's the same port for it, but in a more of a exposing process in Docker. That same thing. Okay.
So Chris, can you
Okay.
please
So
show the command again, once again? And
Okay. Yeah. I'll just explain the command once again. Just give me a second.
yeah, after name you
Uh,
mentioned
okay.
ngns02, then here this one.
Okay, so Docker run. So team, what happens to you? Have to tell me the answer, team. All of you, tell me what happens if I don't enter this minus D.
Detect mode you want to run in background, something.
So it will
It will
basically
be
run detached mode. Okay. If I
in the
don't run
in the front end.
in the front end, so
It
I will
will
not be
run
able
in the front end.
yeah, if I don't use this, it will run in an attached mode or in the front end, so that I will not be able to type any commands in my server now. That's a problem. Now,
Yes.
if I click on -p, that means that to expose a port. This is the port of the container I am opening. And this port of the container I am allowing to map to the port of the system. But if you have a firewall, you have to open the firewall also. That's it. The next thing is that, and you have a name here. Okay, you have a name here. So this is not mandatory. If you don't give a name, what happens, team? If you don't give a name, it will basically, it will basically affect, like, it will automatically give a name, but which is, sometimes get confusing for some people. Okay. Then we have something called as an image name. From this image, what we are deploying the container, right? All good, team?
So this X02 is the name of the image, you're saying.
This is Nginx 02 is the name of the container. You can give any name. Okay. Like, for example, my demo container, or let's say, blah, blah, whatever it is, it's up to you. You can create any name you want here.
But that container will already exist, right? Or it will create at runtime,
Oh,
this one.
no, when you click on run, it will create a new container only. Okay, team, what happens if I try to run the same command again? Let's see. Team, I am going to run the same command again. I press enter. It will show me error. The reason is that there is a container already with this particular name exist. See, team, when I try to run the same command again, they're telling me that there is already a container existing with this same command already. So what we have to do there, team? What we have to do there is, uh, I have to just go through this and replace the container name with a different one. It will work, but still it will show you error. It will show you error. I press enter. It will show you error. Why? Because you can only expose one port to only one container. That means what? The port number 8080 is all of the computer is already mapped to what? For this container. Okay, my previous container called as Nginx container, this particular container has already taken the port number 8080 of the computer, right? So because of that, what happens? It is not working. So if I want to use it, either stop the previous container, then run it, else it will show you error like this. Now ask your doubts, team.
Can I do in this manner? I will put 8080 colon. I will change 80 to something else, some else port number, and I run.
No, no, no,
It
no,
will not.
no, 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 no. Why? Because port number 80 you expose for the other container. But the problem is that the other container is using the port of what? The other container is using the port of your system called as 8080. Okay. In this container, you're opening port number 80. But how can two containers use the same port for the thing? It's not possible, right? So what is change you have to make here? I can make it 8081 if you want. It will work now. Got it?
So you are saying you have to change the host name, host port basically.
Yeah. Okay. Now let me write down this command once again, team. Just give me a second for the convenience of everyone. So this is basically for detached mode. Detached mode means it will run in background. Else what happens is you will not be able to execute any other commands while it's running. This is basically for opening ports. This is the host port. Host port means what? The port of the machine. This is basically the port of the container. This is the name of the container, completely optional. This is the image. Okay. And I repeat once again, if you want, okay, now team, I have a requirement. Okay, I have a new requirement. Okay. My requirement is that I want to run an Apache web server like the same way. Can you basically do a research and show it for me, team? Let's do one thing. Let's do one thing. Let's go to the Apache Docker Hub. I'll do the same thing. Before that, I'll stop the previous container. Team, how to stop the container? I don't know how to stop the container. Tell me how to stop the excess running containers now. No. I want to stop the running containers. Docker
Docker store
stop is what? The
name.
Docker
container
Name
stop
ID.
the container ID,
ID or
container
Docker
name,
stop container name.
container
Okay, let's
name.
see. Let's try with all these things. Okay, so I'm just stopping with the container name also like this. It's working. So again, Docker stop. The third one, I'm stopping every container I'm having. Okay. Now, if I type docker space ps, you can see there is no container now running. Okay. What if I want to see the exited containers?
-a.
Okay. Now my question is that did we remove the containers? No, we just shut down the containers. Okay. Docker
Yes.
space, what we can say, yeah, ps space -a if you want to see all the exited containers. See, it's like, okay. Now I want to run a Apache container, Apache web server. It's a very common web server. I want to run an Apache container. Let's see. I'm going to this one. I type Apache. It's very easy, team. Like, the container name is HTTPD. That's all. So I scroll down. Every step is here only. So it's very easy for you. Let me see if it works. Otherwise, sometimes you have to map a local volume. Let's see if it otherwise it works. Let's see. Okay, Docker space -d -t, name my Apache app, port number 8080. What is the name of it? HTTPD. But I'll show, if you get some error, I'll show you that. What is it? It's now working. See, now it's running. So team, previously it was showing error. Why it's running because of this port? Tell me why the port is able
Because
to work.
we have stopped the container.
The previous container we
We
have stopped,
exited.
right? Yeah.
Yes.
So let's see if it's working. I want to see if it's working. See, it works. See, I got a message from Apache. It works. See, like this, I can basically do anything I want on this. Okay, got an idea on this?
So Krish, are we saying that in case I have a production container running and I stop that for some time, and then when I start it again, I have to again go through that pain of
Nothing,
opening all the ports?
nothing. It's already open there. I just have to run that. That's all.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. Now, team, this is a very simple thing which I have done. Okay. So what all things I showed you now? Okay, fine, perfect. The next thing, and the next thing is that, okay, we know how to use a Docker container now. You know how to execute a command. Okay, I want to log into this container, team. So if I want to log into this container, what I have to do is just type Docker space. Let's see if it's there. First of all, let me type Docker space ps. Okay, Docker space exec, the container name or ID. I'm giving the name, my ID, but I missed step called as IT -IT, IT or TA, whatever it is, bash. See, now I am in the container. That means if you search, I'm in the container. See, I'm in the container now. See this? That's it. Okay, now you're able
with
to do
the
all.
with the user root, right?
That is, see, in the container, because only this user was there, that's why we are using it. But if you want, you can. So in some containers there is other user. That's all. Okay. Yep.
Okay, so now here you can execute the code or whatever with the content lying in the container. You can use it here,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Okay. Let me just check once again. Let me give you a different command again. Sorry, I just typed in the wrong window. Yep. Docker space, or let's see. Instead of this, I'm typing a command. Okay, I don't want to do this. I want to give it like, let's say ping, or the command, right? Yeah, ping minus or -10 google.com. What happened? Okay, ping is not there in the command. That for the container, the ping is not there. That's why. Okay. Anyway, so basically what happens, team? Now there is one more thing. You talk about containers and all that. How do I know the configuration of the container? There is a way that you can know the configuration of the container. If you want to see the configuration of the container running, you can type docker space inspect space the container name. There is a command called as docker inspect. If you type the command called as docker space inspect space this particular thing, you'll be able to see the IP addresses used by the container. You'll be able to see the port number exposed. This is the port number of the container and exposed to the host port 8080. And this is the path of the container. Like this is where the container is now running, the default path of the container. Then you're able to see the host name of the container. See, there's a name you have seen. So you can basically see a lot of configurations of the container if you go for this particular command called as docker inspect. I'll show you the practical use case of it. Okay, that's it. I hope.
Krish,
Tell me.
how do you check if there are any vulnerabilities with this container?
So, like the same way you have a virtual machine for containers, or like the same way you have a server for the containers, also you have a lot of vulnerabilities. Lot of vulnerabilities. Like
So
to
how do
give
you
an
check
example,
those? Yeah.
like the same mechanism you use, you have to use the vulnerability assessment tools for the particular Nginx or all these things, and you can do a pen testing and all the things.
Okay, so you think it as same as VM, exactly,
The
nothing
same, the
different.
same, the same. Nothing different. Okay, the same. Okay, and the next thing. Okay, just a few
Can
more
we
things.
also do the health check of the container, whether it is
Definitely
up and
yes.
running properly?
Yes.
Okay.
We can basically do a health check of the container also. Now, let's do a bit complex
Normally,
task.
when you give, sorry,
Okay.
Krish, sorry to interrupt you. For a
Good, please.
given host, how many containers do they normally have? Like hundreds or tens? I mean,
No, it can
what
be.
are the numbers?
See, now I'll give an example. I don't know how to say a number like that, but still, I'll
No,
tell you one thing.
approximate.
No, I'll
Okay, I
tell you.
got it.
Let's say in my one of the companies I'm working. Okay, I was supporting a company which is basically, developing web applications. This company was developing web applications. Okay, so in this company they had all nearly some 30 customers. I remember in my mind is correct. It's 30 customers. So what happens is that they were having nearly 120 plus containers running, because for every customer they have a container for a MySQL, they have a container for some two web servers, application servers, testing servers, like that. They have a 120 plus containers running, but they were not using Docker at that time. They were using Kubernetes, because if they go for Docker for managing this 120 plus containers, right, end of the day, the guy who is managing the containers will commit suicide for sure. That's why he basically went for Kubernetes. Okay, got it.
So my question is, for 120 containers, how many machines do you need? I was asking.
Like it was like, he was running on some 5 or 6 machines. That's all, maximum five
Is
six
it?
machines. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Okay, now team, let's do one thing. Please wait. Let's do one thing, team. Let's deploy a complete Jenkins server. Okay, I want deploy a complete Jenkins server. What is Jenkins? It's a Nowadays most people know what is Jenkins, right? What is Jenkins, team? See, it's a tool for developers for continuous integration deploy. It's a very complex tool. It's a very interesting tool for continuous integration. Okay, CI. See, it's a very good tool for it's a tool which you use in DevOps. So usually, if you want, you deploy Jenkins. Okay, let me show you that. If you want deploy Jenkins, let me show you. Like I'm just going to Linux or Windows, whatever it is. See, there's a lot of commands, lot of complex configurations. It's end of the day. A lot of things are there. But if you go for a container, this guy is so lightweight. Type Jenkins, okay, and I'm able to get the Jenkins here. Okay, and basically what happens is that, so they are telling you that this is now getting depreciated. That means don't use it. You can basically go for this one. This is the latest one. See, I click on this. This is the latest image of Jenkins. Okay, now how do I basically install it? I scroll down. Okay, I click on the documentation. See, they tell you how to do this. Okay, team, can you tell me what exactly this command will do without executing?
You are just running this Docker. At runtime, you're creating one container and executing and allowing
Exposing the
this
port.
port, exposing the port 8080 of container to the host 8080. And
That's all.
host 8080 is a host port, and 5000 4 times 0 is the container port basically.
Okay.
Yes, you are
So
doing.
this is the name of the this is the name of the container. Okay, that's it. Okay, let's do one thing. Let's deploy a Docker container. Okay, I'm going to show you how to deploy a simple Docker container. Okay, so it's very simple. If you want to deploy a Docker container, all you have to do is, okay, so I'm just copying this command. Okay, nothing is so complex in this. I'm running it. Okay, but there is one thing I want, is that I want to stop the previous container. Otherwise, that guy will make us in trouble. So I don't have much port open. Docker space. Now you know why I'm stopping the container. Docker stop the container ID. Okay, now there is nothing running, I guess. So let's run the container. Sorry. Enter. So they're now pulling the down images first of all, and then they're running. So team, while it's happening, I'm telling you why. So why I have planned this webinar is one of the major things which I want to tell you. So I know that Docker is, we can learn a lot. We can learn a lot more things in Docker. I will tell you where to learn and all these things. I'll give you a very, very interesting platform for learning Docker. But still, why I tell you this Docker is that I have seen many people tell me the point that Docker is tough, Kubernetes is tough. Like they tell me that these things are very tough for understanding. That's why to give you a start on Docker, I'm just trying to, tell you or teach you this. That's the only goal I had. Okay, that's it. Okay, now my content is running, but there is a problem. I'm not able to exit. Team, why I'm not able to exit? I'm just still in the running mode. I'm not able to exit. Why?
Because
It is I have
you run in the interactive mode, not in the
I
detached mode.
yeah, I run in the attached mode. See, now I
Attached
forgot to
mode.
put the command. Yeah, let's do one thing. Let's stop this and do it in the attached mode because I want to show you something more on this. So let's say Docker space or the same command. Why do I have to type it again? I have to type detach, right? It's now running. See, peace of mind.
Hey, Chris, just one question.
Yeah, tell
If
me.
let's suppose in the previous command you were running it in detached mode, how will you
Okay.
know the password created?
Okay. Yeah, I'm coming to that. Okay, I'll show you that. Okay, just give me a second. The same thing I'm coming to that. Okay. Now my problem is that now let's see if it's running. I'm using port number 8080. Okay, and just see if it's running. Reload. You must get a Jenkins welcome screen. See, you must get a Jenkins setup screen. See, we have successfully deployed Jenkins without any hassle. See, I have done Jenkins without any hassle. So my Jenkins is now perfectly running, but there is a problem. They're telling me that if you want to start with setting up Jenkins, there is a default initial password there for Jenkins. Get the password. Team, help me get the password, team. So they are telling me that that particular password will be here inside this file. Okay, inside the Jenkins container, in this particular file we have the password is by default there. Help me with the container. No, I don't know. I want to give the complete command. I'll give him a recommend once again. I have set up a container in Docker with Jenkins. Okay, the problem I'm facing is that I want to log into the container, or sorry, I want to basically, see the initial password in the container. Or if you want to get the initial password in the container, uh, it is basically inside this path inside the container. So how do I basically do it? Tell me.
Docker inspect.
No, that is basically for the basic properties. How to
You
run a
will
command, or either if you want to run a command in the container or log into the container, what you do?
you
Docker.
will execute the Docker. Execute the
Docker
Docker.
ex
Now tell me now. There are two ways.
-l
Docker
Okay,
ID.
okay,
Hyphen
ID,
ID.
IT.
Yeah.
Okay,
Docker
Docker
Like
ID.
ID,
custom
container ID,
container name,
okay. Then
container ID, then cat command, then the path name.
what is the command like? Okay, the command
cat
is bash.
KT.
Okay, now inside the container, right? So now I'm inside the container.
Why
Okay.
do you need a bash for that?
So no, what I'm saying is that
Sorry,
now
sorry.
I'm so no, I'm telling you the keyword. Okay, so I can either go here like this. I can basically go for var cat space / var Jenkins. Then what is it? Jenkins. Jenkins. Home
secret,
secrets, right? Yeah, secrets.
Secrets.
Then we have a Jenkins default password initial, right?
Initial
This one, right?
admin password.
Okay. This is a
Yeah.
default password. I got the password. Lucky I got the password. But I want you to do a different way. Team, tell me how can I get the password without logging onto the container with using the same command? I will tell you. I am just removing this to a detached mode. Instead of this, I am running a command. The same command I run in the container. Cat space this one /var/ you see what I'm doing there. Instead of running the path, see So now why I'm not getting, because the terminal is not showing the output to me. So now if I basically click on this, what happens? As I am basically going for a detached mode, what happens? Output will not be shown in the terminal. So what I will do? See, now I got the password. Okay. So I copy the password here. Okay, I copy the password here. Then I paste the password here. I click on continue. See, I am successfully setting up my container in Docker Jenkins. See, so there are two options. As of now, I'm going for a default. I'm just installing Jenkins very simply, nothing more, nothing more. Very simple installation, right? Okay. Okay, that's it. Now they are now, see, when a very simple Jenkins server, see what I'm doing. I'm setting up a whole Jenkins machine. See, it's very easy, right? I'm able to set up a complete Jenkins server in the Jenkins. See, it's super easy for me, right? That's it. And by the time, team, I will show you something. I will show you something more, but I'm not showing it now because if I show it to you, most of the people will go for that, and you will miss this point. That's why. Okay, let's wait for some more time. It will finish fast. Don't worry. Okay. Now, by the time it's running, just by the time it will take some time. By the time it's creating, I want to know how much resource my container is utilizing. That's a very important question, right? Docker space stats space the ID. This is the ID I given, right? Let's see. See, team, it is now taking this much amount of memory and CPU. See, I'm able to see it. See, it is now taking this much amount of memory, and I am able to see how much memory it is taking, how much CPU is taking. See, it's taking. I'll tell you how to limit the memory and all. But anyway, let's see if the container process is finished. Okay,
Hey,
now they're asking. Sorry.
Just one more question, follow-up
Yeah.
question on that. Now,
Okay.
all these containers that we run on a particular server, they are using
Okay.
the underlying hardware plus the OS of that
Okay.
server. So
Okay.
at any given point in time, we may probably be running out of the the actual memory for that server, right? So for example, if
Okay.
I'm running 100 containers now,
Okay.
and then I reach 150. So how do we really ensure that I am not running out of the physical memory that I have for that particular
That
server?
is why
So
we have option called as reservation. I can reserve a particular amount of memory maximum to a container. That means the container will not be able to use more than a memory which we specify.
okay,
Yep. I'll show you that. Anyway, I'm just going to create a user team, sample user, or let's say demo, 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 demo at demo.com. Save and continue. So team, my server is now completely set up. If you basically call this URL, you'll be able to access Jenkins without any problem. See, now the Jenkins will work like charm. Nothing is there. Now, no problem is there. See, I'm able to get the Jenkins dashboard. See, a whole Jenkins setup with a very simple, within minutes, I was able to set up a Jenkins server. Got it? Super easy. Okay. Now to give you an idea on that. Okay. Now I want to see, if you want to see how much the container memory is taking, as we discussed, you can basically type this command. If you type this command, what happens? You'll be able to see the resource utilization of the container. But many people ask this query that, Krish, how do I basically limit the resource utilization of container? If you want to limit the resource utilization container, what you have to do is docker space run space -d name nginx, or let's say it's nginx 01, whatever it is, or 05. Memory, like this, I have typed the memory tag. Okay, I can basically specify the size 200 MB or whatever. I can specify the size like this, then run the container name. So now what happens, team? The container will be able to use maximum of this much memory only. Got it, team? Like this. Okay, I hope you are able to follow this thing still now, team. Moving on to the next level. Okay, so is it clear till now, all of you? Is it clear till now, everyone? Can you go to the
Yeah,
next
the
team?
memory, if there are some multiple containers, okay,
Okay.
they can dynamically allocate the memories to the containers, right? Whichever is using less, we can take the
Yeah,
memory
yeah.
from them.
No, no,
And
they will always see the containers will never use your memory. Only they will use based on the requirement. But if you want to
Mm,
prevent a overutilization, you can basically do this mechanism. That's all.
okay.
Like only to prevent overutilization. See, don't think that okay, we have a container which will take all memory. Not like that. Okay,
Okay.
the
Okay.
container will not take all your memory. It will happen only if you basically want to or like you can limit if you want. If you feel that container may take more, that's all.
Okay.
Yep. Now the next thing, team. I want to show you some more interesting things on this. I guess it's getting you're able to follow, team. Tell me if there is any challenge you're facing. Okay. All good. Can we go to the
Krish, I
next
just
one?
missed one part. The Jenkins is nothing but a kind of a container.
It's a Jenkins is a software. It's a complete software which is for using DevOps. It's used for DevOps for CI/CD process, like for pulling your code from a GitHub or repository like that and pushing it somewhere. It's a kind of software or application which we use for a CI/CD continuous integration process.
Okay,
Just a
thanks.
sample application. That's all. Yeah. Okay. Now that's about my Jenkins thing. Now I want to show you some more interesting things. I want to show you something called as a storage in Docker. Okay, storage. I'm not going to the deeper part of the storage, but there is a problem. Team, this is a question that this is the main reason why some of the people asked this question yesterday to me. Chris, you're showing this particular containers and all these things. Are we running this in production? That's a question that everyone will ask. But still, let's say team, now you have set up a complete Jenkins server. Okay, you can see now this is my complete Jenkins server. Let's say Docker space PS. See, this is my complete Jenkins server now. Team, let's say if the container crashes, okay, assume that if the container crashes or if the container have got corrupted or maybe you shut down the, so you do something wrong, and what will happen to the data inside the container, team? Tell me, what will happen to the data inside the container?
The
It is gone,
data,
right?
the data will be under underlying hardware, na?
No, never. It's inside the container only, right? Whatever data you're setting up is basically inside the container only. It will never be outside the container. So what happens is that if your container get corrupted or container is gone, that means the data is also gone. Let's say I will give you very very interesting part of it. Now I'm
But
going for something.
if the container is set up in cluster, then the data will be available in the
Never,
other one. Something.
never,
No,
never.
never.
Why? Because until unless the container is there, then how can you have the data? Okay, let me give an example. I'll give an example. So team, I want to deploy MySQL. Okay, you deploy a MySQL container, very simple. And after that, you basically start using MySQL, but you forget to or you don't have a proper container for this. So what will happen there? Oh, sorry, if you don't have a external folder for it. So what happens is that whatever database you're creating will be inside what? Will be inside this container itself. So if the container is
Container
gone,
only.
your whole thing is gone, right? To avoid that, we will never do the particular mistake. If you want to host a website or if you want to host a container or any or sorry database or anything like that in container, you will always map the container to a external folder. That means that I will show you how to
External
do it.
storage.
Yeah,
SAN.
in my local storage. Okay, so I'm going to do something called as Docker space. See what I'm doing very carefully, team. Docker space run space name is equal to, let's say, nginx 06 minus d. You know what is minus d? Then we have a switch called as a minus v. Minus v means that I'm going to bind my local storage. There is a folder I'm having here called as, let's say, nginx logs, ngin nginx logs. Okay, I'm having a local folder in my computer called as nginx logs. Okay, this folder I am mapping to, I'll tell you what is a mapping. It's a Linux concept, var log nginx. So now what happens is, team, this is the default folder of nginx in a system. I am mapping this folder inside the container to this folder. So basically what happens, team, when you put something inside this folder in real time, where is it located in your computers? This particular folder. I'll tell you once again, team, when you do this, you are basically bind mounting or you're mounting a volume that link this internal container folder to the external folder. This is a folder in my local laptop. So basically what happens, team, whatever things you put inside this folder will be shown inside this particular thing. This is basically where the data locates. So even if the container crashed, from where I can get the data, team, tell me. Even if the container crashes, from where I can get the data?
Log folder.
Nginx logs folder,
Engine
right?
cloud.
That's, yeah. So
Yeah,
8080.
Chris, there's one thing.
Yeah, tell me.
Yeah, I was about to ask this thing actually. So we don't need to like map the ports here?
Yeah, I'm just mapping. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to know that thing actually.
Yeah. Okay, press enter. It'll show you error because there is one container guy running. I guess let me stop that container. Sorry. Oh my god. I guess I forgot the command. Yeah. Okay. Docker space stop space. I want to stop the existing container. That's only it'll work. What happened? Yeah. No such container. Okay. It's completely fine if you get error like this.
No, there
There
is a
is a
D in front of
yeah
that.
D. That's it. That's it. Just give me a second. Done. It's done. Okay. Now I'm running the same command again. Okay, there is a container already there. That also is conflicting. So let's do one thing. Let's give a new name called as Nginx 07. Done. My container is now running. I will show you a very interesting thing, team. I'm opening the container. Okay, how do I open the container? Just open the port of the container. Where is it? The IP thing which I configured. Did I close it accidentally? Yeah, I closed it, I guess. Okay, I'll just open it once again. Just open it once again. Open port number 8080. You got the Nginx thing. Oh, I'm just accessing some multiple times. I'm accessing it. Fine. Once you've done it, if I go to the folder in my system, okay, this is a folder in my system. Okay, you can see something called as an access log. See, so this access log is something which is created by the container. So what happens, team? This is a folder inside my system. This is a file which is created inside that by the container. Okay, that's it. See, now 3 times I refreshed. I'll do it once again. I'll refresh it 3 more times. 1, 2, 3. I'll just try the same command again. See, you'll be seeing 6 times. This is the access log of the container. Okay, that's it. All good, team. This is how you
So
mount the
Chris,
volume to a container.
Chris,
Tell me.
you are running here container name nginx07,
Okay. Yeah.
right? So this container is available in your Docker Hub actually. This
Which one? No, that is a name of the container I'm running. The image is running in Docker Hub. This image is there in Docker Hub. This is the image of the name, right?
okay.
Yeah, I'll write
So
down here
basically,
once again, team.
okay. Okay. That means this image nginx you are creating this container at runtime.
Container name. Yeah. Detach mode. Volume. This stands for volume. This is my folder in my local laptop. Folder in my system in my Docker server. This is the folder inside the container, default folder inside the container, inside container, port mapping, image name. Okay, that's it. All good, all set to go. Perfect. Yes, or you can use you can mount it for a like SAN cluster also. No, it will work, Pratik. No problem. Okay, that's about it, team. It's really interesting. So now before I go to the next part of it, I will show you a very interesting platform which I felt okay. Team, I would like you to practice this thing. Like just in case if you want to, go for this. Just in case if you want to, work on Docker. If you want to play with Docker, this is a good thing I would like you to go for. There is something called as a Katacoda. See, Katacoda. It's a very good simulator. So Krish, I don't have a server for running the Docker. No worries. If you want to learn Docker or Kubernetes or anything, this is a very good platform where first of all you have to create an account. That's the only problem. Let me see if I can create an account now. Just a second, team. Let me create an account now for your convenience. Please wait. Let me do a federated authentication. Okay, done. I have logged in. Now, team, what I'm going to do is see this very carefully. I click on Start Scenarios. Okay, see this is called as Docker Playground. Docker Playground means you will get the complete Docker commands. They will teach you Docker. See, they will teach you Docker. Okay, so if you want to basically go for this, okay, You'll get many tutorials, but I don't recommend you go for all of them, because the problem is that if you go for all of them, it'll confuse you. This is a very good thing to start. You have a 34 scenarios you can play with. Don't do it now. I will tell you later, because once you get the idea only, you do it. Okay, I click on start course just for your understanding, team. See, or let's say, for example, if you want to talk about, or if you want to teach or learn about what is container, just click on start. Or if you want to learn Docker Foundation, you can basically see they will deploy a Docker server for you. That's the only thing. But this is not for production. It's only for simulation. I repeat, this is not for production, only for simulation, like for learning Docker. It's a more hands-on thing. It's a free of cost thing. Then that's why I'm just showing you. Okay. I liked it very much. Even if I have used it very less, I liked it very much because it's a very nice platform for you to learn. So I can just share a URL with your team. You can do it later, but it's a really good thing. Okay, that's it. So if you basically get error like this completely, just go back and click on start course.
So we have to access this Katacoda always from the web GUI.
Yes. See, team, the second URL I shared is the one which is you have to use. Okay, you have everything here. See, create data inside the container, create network. Everything is here. I don't know what all things they have inside this, but it's really good. That's it. Okay, you can go back to, you can come to this later, but as of now, okay, now you are good in this Docker container part, team. Now let's one more small thing and I'm done with this. We have something called as a Docker images. Okay, Docker images. Okay, so what exactly is a Docker image, or how to basically use a Docker image? These things may be confusing to you, but still it's more interesting for you to understand. Okay, I will need to talk to you what is a Docker image. Okay, so when you say the word Docker image, you know what is a Docker image, team? Docker image means that it's a file, it's a particular kind of image file which we use to create Docker container. But how do I create a Docker image? If you want to create a Docker image, you need something called as a Docker file, right? If you want to create Docker image, what you need to have is you have to create Docker file. But there is some few things you have to keep in mind. This is where you need a little bit of, it's not scripting, but very basic thing. Okay, Docker file is just a text file. First point is that Docker file is just a text file. Okay, we have a text file written in a specific format. Okay, in a specific format. First point. Okay, so we have an instruction, we have an argument like that. This is a Docker file. Okay, very simple. But there are some few things which is mandatory in a Docker file. I'll teach you how to make your own Docker file. The first thing is that in every Docker file, so don't forget, Docker file is something which we use to, build an image. Okay, so if you want to build a Docker file, the first thing is that it is mandatory that you need something called as a base image. What is a base image, team? Base image means that if you are a complete programmer, you can write your own image, but Docker normally allows you to create an image from the existing image only. Like for example, team, now if I go to the Docker hub, okay, if I go to the Docker hub, you can see there are many images here, right? See, for example, let's say I have a Ubuntu, I have a Nginx, I have a lot of images here. Okay, if you want to create your own image, you have to build it on top of this image only. Don't forget, you have to build it on top of this image only. You got it, team? If you want to build a Docker file, don't forget that you can build the Docker or your Docker image only from this image. Okay, so let's do one thing. Let's build a Docker file. Okay, first thing is that I will first of all create a folder for my convenience. I'm just creating a folder. So I'm going to create a Docker file. So nano space Docker file. If you okay, Krish, what if I want to give a different name? If you want to give a different name, you have to specify that while you're creating image. That's all. I press enter. First line mandatory for all things is from what? So team, if I type from Ubuntu, what do you mean by that? That means that you are building your own Docker file image from this particular default image in the cloud plat or in the Docker hub. Got it, team? When you say the word from Ubuntu, from Alpine, from Red Hat, from something, that means you are pulling the, first of all, you're getting the image from the Docker hub, and whatever things you're doing after this is basically you're making custom image from this image only. Got it, team? That's clear? All of you, it's clear? Perfect. Now I click on from Ubuntu. Okay, from Ubuntu, I'll write down once again here. So from Ubuntu means that I am using the Ubuntu image available in Docker Hub as the base image. Okay, now what is the next thing you want to do? Once the container is pulled, you want to install something in the container. So I want to run something inside the container. So basically, I'll give you an example. I'll give you a problem. Okay, first, before I just do this, let me show you a problem here. Team, do you remember that we made some changes to the container? Do you remember, team? We made some changes to the container, right? We basically logged into the container. We changed something, right? So when you change something inside the container, how can you save it for the future purposes? Is it possible? Is it possible, team? Like we build a Docker image from a container from an image, and once you basically reach the container, and once you make some modification in the container, do you think that we will be able to do something in the container? Like we will be able to make it to image? No. That is why you have to make a Docker file. Okay, if you want to have a complete thing, you have to make a Docker file. So what I will do is, team, I'll type nanospace Docker file. Inside the Docker file, this is the most toughest part for some people. First command I want to do is run. Run means that if you want to run some command. So team, if I do this command, can anyone tell me what will happen inside this, team? What will happen here? They will first of all get the image from this. They will run this command inside the image called as run update update. What is the next thing? I'm just typing run apt get, let's say, install -y Apache 2. So what will this will do? They are running these commands in series inside the container. Okay, they are basically running these commands in series inside the container. See, I'm just running some sample things. Okay, I'm running some things, and so basically run apt get apt get clean, just a command for just for easy in the job, and I'm just trying to open the port of the container. That's all. Okay, that's it. But just so basically from is mandatory, and if you want, you can basically add something more. Like for example, Krish, I have made this container, or I have made this image. I want to have my name in the image, so you can basically make maintainer Krish. So what happens? This means that this image is basically managed and maintained by user person called as Krish. It's not it's completely optional. Okay. So once you make your own Docker file, team, what we can do is, okay, once you make your own Docker file, what we can do is, you have to first of all save the file. Okay, and what we have to do is, you can basically build the file. What is a building the file, team? Just type docker, sorry. Okay, let's see, I'm just showing an example, team. Yeah, that's fine. I'm just showing an example, that's all. I know it's there. Yeah, docker build space minus. So let's say, for example, I want to build a container. So what I will do is, I can give a name for the container. It's mandatory for the image. This is the name for the image, Apache image, which I have made, version 1. Dot means my Docker file is in the same location. Dot means that my Docker file is in the same location. I press enter. See, now it's currently running. See, they are running all the commands which you have given to them. See, let's wait. So there is an error. See, there is a typo which I have done. That's why the process stopped. So what I will do, I have to go to the container again. I have to basically verify the typo. So what is typo? There's a typo here, right? That's all. Done. I have just fixed it. Okay. Then I press enter. Why? Enter. So it will not work if you have basically have a typo. Okay, that's it. I'm just doing it again. Let's see if it's working. It's now running perfectly fine. So they will ask you for the location you have. Basically, now if you want, you can basically specify the location. If you specify the location as 6 Asia, it is taking some time, so that is why I'm not showing it here, team. Once this is completed, okay, and we have no time for it finishing, that's why it's not, I'm showing it to you. Once this is finished, okay, once this is finished, it will work. As of now, I am aborting the process because I know that it will take some time. Just want to show you the process of Docker container build. See this, team. So Docker image is something where, so Docker file is something where you can write a complete code and make a Docker image there. Okay, from the Docker file, you can make a Docker image. Okay, that's it. Is it clear, team, all of you?
You take a base image and make changes, or you can write your own images.
But still, it's mandatory for you to have a base image. For anything, it's mandatory you have a base image. Okay,
So
that's it. I'll
your
do one
your
thing. Uh-huh.
so your Docker file name is Docker file, and you create this file taking base Ubuntu, and then you create an image, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Just a few did.
yep. So team, what so I'll tell you once again. See, this is so I'm going to make a complete Docker image. So team, let's say, hmm, just a second. Yeah, no worries. Let's make it one by ourselves. Why do you want to make it go for that thing? So if you want to basically Docker make a Docker file, it's very easy, super easy, nothing much. Okay, so team, let's say this is the example I want to show you. Yeah, you can build multiple Docker, but make sure you are in multiple folders. See, team, tell me what this image will do. So whenever you put a hash, that line will not be read by the Docker. Then this is the base image. This is the name of the maintainer. So these commands will be executed inside the container, and they will show you a command called. This is a command which will they show us image created. That's all. Okay. So let's do and let's try to run this command, run this image, team. So I'll type. I'll just remove all the things I am having here. Okay. Let's see if it will work. Okay, nothing is there, so I'm going to build the image. See, it's not a large task they're doing. That's why it's completing very faster. You can build multiple Docker images for multiple tasks. Okay.
What is the
So
image
now
name here, Chris?
uh,
V1.
sample, and that version is V1. That's all.
Okay.
There is one error. It's showing some error to me. No, well, let's see what is the error. So yeah, error is that there is minus. I just copied pasted somewhere. That's why it's showing minus Y. Now it will work for sure. Done. If I basically run this command again, it will work. Let's see. Now they are building a Docker file, okay, Docker image, okay. From the Docker file, they are now building a Docker image.
Krish, from where we are getting that sample name sample? It's the
I
name of
just
that
Google it.
doc.
No, I just give a sample name. That's all. Okay. Now let's
Sample
say,
name.
yeah, if you type Docker images now, you will see that there is an image which is called as a. So you basically sample. Let's see, already create. See, sample tag is version 1. This is the image now we are having. Okay, the image which I have created. If you want, I can basically push this image to the Docker Hub, or if you want, we can basically keep it in my system also. Okay, this is how you build a very sample Docker image as well. Okay, that's it. Perfectly fine, team. That's all I want to discuss about Docker in the basics. Okay, now just one more thing. I want to tell you how this team, don't leave. You can basically fill out the feedback form and you will be able to get the uh, certificates as well. Okay, so anyway, when you go for a Docker, you can do a lot more things. There is a lot of things you can do with this particular thing. But what we have to understand is that it's very easy to learn also. I give you a platform for learning. And if you want to search for the documentation part of it, I would always recommend that you go for something called as a Docker documentation. Okay, that's a very important thing. I never recommend you go for anything else. Please go for Docker documentation for the latest commands and all these things. It's everything is here. If you want to get the guides, or basically if you want to anything, it's all here, like CLI reference or for guides. See, everything is here. If you want to learn something, DevOps with Docker, best practice, build images, see, they will tell you everything. They will tell you everything you need. It's literally very interesting to learn. Okay. The commands in Docker, you will get everything in this particular Docker documentation. Okay, that's it. Now, why do we have to run this container in the cloud platform? Is the next question I won't tell you. Okay, so let's say, for example, team, there is many questions that you asked. So Krish, now if I run this container in my system, what if my local system or what if my Docker server run out of space? It can happen, right? Your Docker server can run out of space, right? That is why what we can do is, if you want, you can basically deploy the container in a managed service by the cloud service provider. In a managed services by the cloud service provider. That means that in, let's say we have a AWS cloud platform. In AWS, for deploying Docker containers, they offer thing called as a ECS, Elastic Container Service. In Azure, they have a ACS, or Azure Container Service. So basically what happens, so you can basically go for either this or this, and you will be able to deploy Docker servers there. But it is just the Docker servers. Inside that, you can basically manage it, or all the things you do in the normal Docker server as well. Okay, that's it. Okay, now why use Docker? You already know. What is the problem with Docker is the next thing you want to tell you. If you go for a Docker, the problem is that, let's say team, now you have a only one Docker server here. This is my one Docker server here. Okay, Docker host or Docker server, we can say. So you are having multiple containers here. Like the same way that many people ask here. So Krish, what happens if this particular goes down? Okay, what happens if this goes down? What happens if this basically, let's say, what happens if this uh, exhausted, like memory is exhausted or CPU is exhausted? If these kind of things happen, what we can do is, you can basically use a mechanism called as a orchestration tool. Orchestration tool. What is the orchestration tool? The tool which basically helps you to properly do the orchestration. That means you're able to manage multiple servers together in a proper way, is called as a orchestration tools. Okay. In the cloud platform, or in the Docker infrastructure, we have something called as a Docker. Okay, so we have something called as a Docker Swarm. Docker Swarm. If you this is not Docker, this is basically a Docker Swarm. In the sense means that this is basically where you can create multiple Docker servers like this and manage them together. Okay, if you want to create multiple Docker servers together and manage them together in a cluster with a high availability, auto scaling and all, you can go for a Docker Swarm. But this is not recommended because it's good, but still it's not having all the enterprise features. That is why we go for something called as a Kubernetes. It's powered by Google. So the Kubernetes is a very interesting platform where the commands are different, but still it is something where you can create a massive infrastructure with multiple Docker servers, health checkup, monitoring, configuration, troubleshooting, scalability, failover, replication. Like this, you can do all the things you're expecting for enterprise level applications in the Kubernetes. Okay, you can do all these things in the Kubernetes part. Fine, that's it. And let's see if I can plan one webinar on that once you're done with all these things. Okay, that's it. Then
So Chris, what is the main advantage between Docker and Kubernetes?
Docker is basically for limited, like, you're limited to only one server and you have a lot of limitations. But if you go for Kubernetes, you can create multiple servers. We call it as pods or nodes. We can create multiple Kubernetes clusters, and we can basically manage them together from one VM to another VM, or sorry, we can move the container from one system to another. We can troubleshoot, we can have a failover, we can have a replication, we have auto scaling. Like that, there are many benefits of using Kubernetes. But it's not so easy like learning Kubernetes Docker. It's a bit more complicated, but still, let's see. Okay, that is Kubernetes.
So Chris, the way we have the containers here, and what we read
Mhm.
Docker images, same concept will be available for Kubernetes as well. But so where
Exactly.
it different, where it comes the difference basically.
Okay. In this Docker, if the server fails, can you do anything? Your containers are lost, right?
Right.
Okay. What if your containers run out of space in this system? What if you want to have a continuous monitoring of all the containers you have in multiple computers? What if you want to deploy it to a cluster of containers? You want to make a cluster of containers like this, like that. You have a lot of challenges you are facing with Docker. All those challenges you can basically manage with the help of a Kubernetes tool. Okay, that's it. Fine.
So instead of creating containers on Docker, we can create container Kubernetes platform. Just we have to do,
Exactly,
right?
yes. Exactly. But still they are powered by, in the backend, they are using some Docker things also, but still end of the day, Kubernetes is the most important thing. Okay, that's it.
Okay. Okay. So all syntax are same. Nothing changed, right? All commands and syntax.
See, the commands are entirely different. Like for example, in Kubernetes, the commands are like kubectl run, kubectl cluster, like the commands are entirely different in that. Okay, that's it.
Krish, this session has been super helpful. One more session coming from Kubernetes, please.
Sanjeev, I'm not getting your voice. There is a lot of buzzing. Not able to hear anything.
Yeah, Chris. Uh,
Yeah, now tell me.
Docker is a prerequisite for Kubernetes. Do we need to install Docker service separately in order to use Kubernetes, or
No.
if we
You
install?
can directly go for. That is fine. That is fine. You can install Kubernetes. Okay.
Okay.
Tell me, team. Others? Somebody was asking something. Madhav, you asking something? Any queries, team? Tell me. Any queries you have? Anyone?
It's question related to interoperability.
Okay.
Whether we can interoperable between our Docker and
Yes, it is possible.
default.
Yes, possible. It's
Okay.
not so easy, but it's possible. Yes.
Okay. Between Docker and cloud repository tools.
Yes,
In
exactly.
we can, instead of saving in our local system or local folder, can we write something to save directly into Azure repository service, something like that? Can we?
That is a bit tough, but it's possible. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So the
Yep. Okay. Now, team. Now there is something. Oh yeah. Okay. What is that? Container escape. Okay. We have something called as a container escape now. Okay. Container escape. Okay. Container escape means that, team. That's a attack which happens. Like for example, let's say you have multiple containers running now. Okay. Like for example, we have a container number 1, container number 2. Like we have multiple containers running. So all these things are basically connected to the same network, right? Like how do I basically see that? You can type something called as a Docker space networks, or let's say Docker space network. Okay, you're able to see that. Okay, you're able to see that you can basically have multiple networks in Docker space network space ls. If you see, you're able to see network. So all the containers you're creating is now creating to this particular network. That means if one container is basically, an hacker is able to compromise one container, that particular attacker will be able to enter the other containers in the same network somehow. Okay, that is why it can happen called as container escape. Is it clear or no? Yep.
3 network ID here, Chris.
Sorry.
We have 3 network ID here. Which one
Yeah,
is?
this is the one which we use for all the bridge is the one which is we all use for all the containers. This is the one which the container is able to communicate to the Docker server. Okay, that's it.